Hello and welcome to the Program Management in the Art of Communication Certification Program. We're in our fifth course, Storytelling that Delivers Program and Project Outcomes, and in week one we're going to talk about the structure and components of stories. So in our first module, we're going to talk about what is a story. Now you probably have some ideas about what stories are. You've grown up with stories. You probably have some favorite movies, TV shows, books, and these are all filled with different kinds of stories. So we have stories all around us. And sometimes we forget about the power of stories. So I want to talk a little bit about the history of storytelling and how we use it in business and in project management and program management. And probably one of the early pioneers in this is Stephen Denning, who worked in the World Bank in the 1990s. And I kind of remember that myself because I used to work at the General Services Administration, which was just down the street from the World Bank in Washington, D.C. And Stephen Denning was trying to put in a program on knowledge management. And he was going around the World Bank talking about knowledge management, how to use it effectively. And as he says in his book, it really didn't come together for him, this idea of selling knowledge management in the World Bank, until he thought about using stories. And the story he talked about was Zambia. Now, when he was doing this was in the mid to late 90s. And the internet, the commercial internet, was still pretty new. And he talks about how this person, this aid worker in Zambia, found some information about malaria on the CD, Centers for Disease Control website, and used that to help cure malaria in their village. And what Stephen Denning was trying to say to the World Bank folks is that we are the people that we do a lot of work with developing countries, and we have a lot of resources on helping combat poverty and illness, and it really should have been our website with this information. So he talks about in his book how he started shifting towards telling stories and using stories to really sell the knowledge management work. And he goes on a journey about discovering stories. And he says what he talked about with the Zambia story was basically an anecdote, really quick, short, and just to the point. And when he talked to a well-known scholar of stories, this person said that your Zambia story really wasn't a real story, that a well-told story has a plot, it has conflict, it has characters, it has lots of details. And Stephen Denning comes back and says, well, that's true, but in some cases here, when we're doing persuasion, when we're doing business communication, what we may need here is a minimal viable story, just enough to persuade. So we don't need a greatly, richly detailed story, but something that can prove our point in a few seconds, in a few minutes. And he also talked about in his book about the idea of positive versus negative stories. Positive stories where we have a positive outcome, we're learning something from it, we have success. And he talks about another storyteller that uses negative stories where we have failures and we learn from our failures, and the power of both of these kinds of stories. And then he talks about communities of practice, which are an integral part of knowledge management. And probably the most famous example out there is the Xerox repairman who would go out to client sites and they would repair the Xerox machines in the 70s and the 80s. And what he found out is that the Xerox repairman had stories about how to handle a certain machine malfunction, had a way to handle the Xerox model, that they really weren't stories in the sense that you had conflict and characters and plots and wouldn't be the well-told story, but they were teaching stories. Essentially was codifying lessons learned and how to fix that certain machine through this power of story. So when we talk about stories in here, we're going to be talking about traditional stories and then maybe teaching stories and minimal viable stories. But at the heart of it is the idea of storytelling, having people come in and live through your experiences through the story.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying this free lesson from the University of Maryland's Project Management Center for Excellence. If you want to check out more lessons just like this one, click the link in the description below where you'll be able to go to our website on executive project management. There, you can find edX courses, professional short courses where you can learn from an instructor like me, as well as request custom team training for you and your organization. All right, let's get back to the lesson and I'll see you at the end.
According to scholars who study stories, there's all kinds of different types of stories out there. And I've seen estimates of 7 types of stories, 9 types, 11, 13. But we do know, according to a really famous mythologist and folklore expert, Joseph Campbell, that there is one universal story that appears in all cultures and throughout all history, and we call it the hero's journey. So the idea with the hero's journey was we have someone in the ordinary world that gets a call to adventure. And you've seen this in all kinds of movies, TV shows, books, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. We have an ordinary person who hears the call for adventure and sets out on that journey. Sometimes they're enthusiastic about the journey, sometimes they're reluctant. And as they travel along for adventure, they meet a mentor. Could be Obi-Wan Kenobi, could be Gandalf. There's all kinds of mentor characters in our folklore. And the hero and the mentor go through the first threshold. And this is basically the separation between the hero's ordinary world and the new world that they're entering, this new unknown world. And in this new unknown world, our hero meets an ally who pairs up with the team. And then we go into our test and enemies. So we have our ally help us with our test and enemies. The mentor sometimes will help us too, but may die during this period or may come back. It really depends on the story. But our ally and our hero increasingly face more difficult tests and more difficult enemies until we get to the ordeal, the final battle here. And if you're a gamer like me, you know this is the boss battle. We meet the boss and we have to defeat the boss to win the game here. So our hero, with the help of the allies, maybe when the mentor has come back, helps our hero beat that ordeal, and they gain a reward. They gain some enhanced knowledge, they get new skills, they get something that helps make that hero better. So when they return back to the ordinary world in the road back, they have a reward to bring back with them, and the person is wiser and more powerful and has some experience from their adventure. And that is the hero's journey. And you've seen this in many movies, TV shows, books. It's a very common theme. Now, what I want you to do is think about the project or program as the hero's journey. So we're going to start with the project initiation. That's our ordinary world. That's the world before we have this project. And we have this call to adventure. Come and help us build this project or program. That's the project vision or program vision. We meet with the mentor. Could be the executive sponsor, could be the program manager, could be a project manager, but we're meeting with our mentor here. And we're going to cross the threshold. This is when we start doing the planning, and we go from the ordinary world where we didn't have this project to now we are building the project. And we go into the special world of the project. And we have tests, allies, and enemies. So again, think about this adventure you're going on with your project. I'm certain you've run into these kind of things before, where you're trying to juggle resources, juggle the schedule, juggle the budget. You've got competitors you're working against. It is like an adventure, isn't it? You have an ordeal. And I've been on enough projects where it's about halfway through the project. It doesn't look like we're going to make this work. It looks like we're just going to be stumbling around. We run out of budget. We run out of resources. And we need to just push through and get that project, done. And then we can have our reward. Seizing the sword, which is a common thing in some of this folklore. But we have a reward by producing the program or project product. And we have happy, I hope, happy customers. And then we come back to the ordinary world, the world after the project, back, between our projects here. And on our road back, we do our lessons learned and we understand how we built this project. And I like this term about resurrection. Sometimes we learn a little bit more and we learn how to come back from the ordeal of the project and maybe do it better. And this idea of returning with the elixir. So now we have this great project or program. It's in our resume. It's something we've learned a lot from. We built a great team and we can go forth and do more adventures. So that's your project as the hero's journey.
Hey there, did you enjoy that lesson as much as I did? If you did, go ahead and give us a like. If you want to see another one, go ahead and subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, put them below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Moreover, is there somebody in your life who really needs this lesson right now? If so, go ahead and share it with them. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. Now, we look forward to seeing you in the next lesson where you can learn even more from the University of Maryland Project Management Center for Excellence. Thanks so much.